this is Stephanie.
And this is Brian.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 5 of The Making and the Remaking of a Codependent Mind.
This time we decided the topic would be family of origin.
Yeah, and this is kind of a therapeutic term, I guess, or a term that comes out of therapeutic circles. You know, just talking family of origin just being the family unit that raised you, typically two parents, but could be one parent, grandparents, etc. With the idea that that's where you learn a lot of the interpersonal behaviors. That's how you learn to be in relationships. That's how you learn to love other people. That's how you learn to manage your emotions, etc.
Yeah, so it's no surprise that it's an extremely important topic to focus on, and usually one of the bigger topics that people do focus on when it comes to therapy.
And codependency.
Sure.
And we haven't actually talked a lot. We talked a little bit about your family of origin.
Yeah.
But we focused mostly on this 5-year friendship that you had with this abusive friend as being a source of a lot of the traumatic experiences and the subsequent codependent behaviors. And as we've been going through this podcast, and you've been doing a lot more reflecting, and we've been talking about your family, I think both of us kind of felt that perhaps we had downplayed the role of your family of origin in your larger story.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. And so that's kind of why I wanted to circle back to this, almost as a way of correcting that a little bit. I think there's a lot of different reasons why I did that. I mean, for one thing, I was kind of imagining people listening to it, like getting their hands on it, say like my parents themselves, or even just like my brother listening to it and going, whoa, you're being harsh on our parents or something. And,
right.
That'd be one thing, but I think there's a lot of different things. Like, you know, yes, I think we were correct in the emphasis that we put on that friendship, that childhood friendship. But I think something that was left out too much was the fact that I think my parents may have led to that friendship. And so I think just the fact that that friendship was so harsh and the trauma was so obvious and blatant that it kind of downplayed my experience with my family, which was also not great either. And standalone, it may have led to a lot of the same behaviors either way.
So, what's the purpose of this episode for you, really?
So I think the purpose is throughout this process, I've found it really valuable to take this new self-awareness to my family and just look at them differently from a different light, rather than looking at them as a unit or something, or kind of in this old picture that I had, and just carrying this old picture forward and not really understanding my role in the family or understanding who each of them are as individuals. I just think it's good to be a little more intentional with my relationship with each of them, each of the people in my family.
In terms of what you want from that relationship?
Yeah, what I want from the relationship and what it means to me, and what I think I can bring, and what I can, and kind of the expectations I can have. But also, ultimately, I wanted to really get more into detail of the effects that my family has had on all of this stuff we've been talking about in the podcast, the codependency, the behaviors, the emotional immaturity, and things like that.
We had an episode on rewriting stories, which has been an important part of this process for you, going back through the stories of your life and figuring out kind of what was true and accurate and what stories were serving you. So this is kind of a rewrite of your family of origin story. Yeah.
I mean, we even mentioned my family a little bit in that episode too, being that like I kind of had this incorrect thread about my mother and my father and who they were, and that I mainly carried forward from that relationship with R that we talked about. But this is more than that. This is more like narratives I've been carrying my entire life.
And you mentioned 2 reasons why we might have both kind of missed the importance of your family of origin to the codependency story. One of which is that the G experience was so overwhelming.
Yeah.
That it kind of overwhelmed the narrative of your family story.
Yeah, right.
And then also there was some concern about your family hearing it and the way they might respond.
Yeah.
So maybe causing some anxiety there.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Almost unconscious anxiety.
Yeah, sure. And then some of that anxiety, not even really directly being related to them or my relationship with them. It's more just kind of that I don't want to disappoint people anxiety that kind of just I carry in general with people.
Yeah, and it can be very difficult to look honestly at your family of origin.
Yeah.
These are people who are so powerful and so important and so meaningful in your life.
Right. And the key here also is that they are still in my life. Unlike some of the other relationships we talk about, R and J and stuff like that, and even G, they're long gone.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're fading into history, and it's easier to get an understanding of that when I'm separated from it. And it's not like I'm being abused by my family. We'll get into this, but it's just all this is active. They're the same people.
They are. So, yeah, let's get into it. Let's do a little deeper dive. It seems like one of the most defining dynamics of your family was your father's anger. And the way the rest of the family reacted to that and had to incorporate that into their own lives.
I think that's a good word, incorporate. Yeah, we all kind of incorporated this in our own ways, but also in similar ways.
And you mentioned briefly the potential connection between your father's anger and emotional dysregulation and the subsequent friendship with G, abusive friendship. How do you think now those might be tied together?
Well, yeah, I think it's that and my mother's the behavior that she modeled. So I think it's between the two of those. But I think the way I was already learning to deal with this anger that my dad was displaying I was already forming these codependent behaviors from day one. Just from just this family dynamic. So once I met G, it was kind of like the way we described when I met R and J and stuff like that, where I just made them feel safe and comfortable. And this guy was like, oh, wow, this guy's agreeing with everything. Just basically kind of the same start to the G relationship as all the other ones, really.
So you got stuck in that friendship the way that you subsequently got stuck as an adult.
Yeah.
Because you had already started to develop some of the codependent habits.
Yeah, right.
In seeing your parents, your father's anger and your mother's response to it.
Yeah, and so I kind of get this chicken and the egg a little bit from that, in that, I definitely think a lot of stuff formed from the G friendship. I'm not discounting that, but it's like my family kind of set me up for that relationship to happen. And then I was stuck there, and then the trauma that I was getting from that friendship, I brought home, and then it kind of fueled the fire of my behaviors towards dealing with my dad's anger. And so it was like kind of the two playing off each other throughout my whole childhood, and then beyond, of course.
Right. So, in some of the first episodes of this podcast, where again, you hadn't really dived deeply into these family of origin issues and we hadn't talked much about them, it was more the codependent behaviors started with G. Yeah. They were reinforced at home.
Right.
In terms of the way that your father behaved. But now it's almost, you're saying they started before G.
I was already
and then they were reinforced and strengthened through this 5-year abusive friendship. And in addition to going home and seeing those behaviors modeled there as well.
Right. And so still, I'm not saying, oh, I was born a codependent. I don't think anyone is. But it definitely, I feel more strongly now that I was for a lot longer, from possibly before I could even form memories.
So what did your dad's anger look like? And what does it look like? Because it hasn't changed that much, except you're not at home anymore.
True, yeah.
But so, when you were young, what did it look like?
Well, it was...
And feel like?
It was frightening. It was emotionally immature display. He didn't know how to handle his emotions, basically, is how it was. Like, it didn't... So some examples would be... He would get really impatient with me, my brother and I, but I'll focus on myself. Just when I wasn't doing things the way he wanted me to do it, or if I was not picking things up quickly enough, like I remember doing math flashcards or something like that, him getting upset, or if I did things wrong, like in the house, or I left a light on, or I didn't put a pen or scotch tape back in the drawer, or all kinds of different things would, a normal person would maybe be annoyed at that kind of stuff, sure. But his reactions to it would be this kind of explosive cursing, often directed directly at me or sometimes from another room. But it was it happened a lot. And this is part of the downplaying, is that I kind of was thinking about only when it was directed at me, but a lot of times it was not. And this is still the case. A lot of times it's just anger at stuff not working, the computer's not working,
and swearing and yelling,
swearing and yelling. So yeah, it's
and physically, you know, banging things, you know,
yeah, slamming doors, things like that. Yeah, there would be ones that just happened on a recurring basis, like the garage door not closing, like you try to fling the door closed or whatever. It doesn't catch, you know, and I hear him swearing from the other room. You know, usually the most common thing was like, "God damn it," you know, that kind of thing. That sounded like that, just kind of this sharp.
It's almost on a daily,
shit, you know, he said that a lot, and
that would be almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So you would have these kind of like little explosions, almost on a daily basis that you could hear, that you had to absorb, but then also fairly regularly that they would be directed at you.
Yeah.
As if you were like the garage door that wasn't closing correctly.
Yes. Yeah. So it felt the same whether it was directed at me or not, or like if it was being directed at my brother or my mom or something like that, you know? So, and I got a little bit when it was directed at them, I got a little bit of that same, like powerlessness. I can't do anything to help sort of feeling.
How did your mom respond to this? I mean, she's the adult in the situation. How does she respond to?
She responded, as far as I could tell, the way I eventually wound up responding, which is just accept it and try to pacify. And if he's getting upset about something, do it, you know, without question.
Either help him or take over for the task. Yeah.
So, you know, something that he did often with my mother, that still does with my mother, is he'll have trouble with the computer. She'll be in a different room and he'll just be shouting from the other room like, "God damn it, my computer's not working." And he'll do that until she volunteers to go help him. If she doesn't do that quickly enough, he escalates the anger, and then finally says her name, like, "Come and help me," you know.
Right.
But often it'll just be like, I'm just directing this anger at the sky and someone's going to help me manage this, you know, and we always did as a family.
So codependent behaviors.
Yes, exactly.
Regulating. So your mother would regulate his emotions.
Yeah.
Would caretake. Would make an effort to make sure he was comfortable
And then as far as, I mean, since we mentioned my mom, there was some other behaviors that she modeled that I picked up on that went into my whole suite of behaviors, being this powerlessness. So she had this powerlessness with my dad's behaviors, for one, but she exploded that out, just like I did, to pretty much everything. Like she had this kind of, I'm powerless over my entire life. And sort of had this defeatist, she did the self-fulfilling prophecy type of thing, where this is not going to be good. So either I'm just not going to do it at all, or I'm going to do it, I'm expecting this to happen, and kind of basically make it happen, sort of thing. And so she had that with the family. She included us in that stance, where it'd be like, if something bad happened, it would either be like, "Oh, this always happens to me," or "This always happens to us," you know? So like we being kind of the same problem that we talked about with me, overusing we as this sort of codependent fallback word, you know? So it feels better to her to loop us all in, to say, "Oh, this always happens to us. It's our luck. It's our family's luck," you know? So that was model behavior. And then she also even had similar things like depression, and sort of treated that as an intrinsic trait and like a sort of a badge. Like this is something I have. This is who I am. I have depression. And
this is another reason why nothing good happens in my life, or I don't have to make an effort because I'm depressed. So I can just sit in my room and play games or...
Right. And then, you know, she would also have a lot of resentment that she voiced out loud. And this is something also I downplayed or just kind of ignored for a large part. But yeah, complained about my dad a lot. So yes, he was doing these angry outbursts and stuff like that, but she would complain about it to me.
Right. To her children.
Yeah.
And it was directed at them as well. So...
I'm just going to tell you that I don't accept this behavior, but I'm powerless, so I can't do anything about it. So all I can do is just complain about it.
Well, she does, yeah, right. So she does accept the behavior. She allows the treatment.
Yeah,
and
technically,
And then she just is resentful that she has to, even though, again, she was the adult in the situation. Yeah. I mean, then it makes even more sense, right, when you get into marriages with abusive people. Yeah. You know, especially the last one, with Jay, who also had kind of explosive anger. She also had other, controlling behavior and
Yeah.
coercive, and she was an abusive person.
And yeah, actually more blatantly actually abusive.
Right.
Unlike what we're talking about with my dad, where it's more so just emotional mismanagement.
But nevertheless, you would respond to Jay's anger and outbursts the way that your mom would respond to your dad, in that you would complain about it to other people the way that she treated you, but it would also be shrug. What can you do? All I can do is complain.
Yeah. So I didn't actually want advice from people or anything when I would complain. It would just be like this. I'm just venting. That's it.
Let's talk a little bit about that though, because we're saying again, R and J were abusive people, and that their anger was also directed at coercion and control.
Yeah. And
you don't see that with your dad.
Right.
Maybe we should just say a little bit about the positive family dynamics, of which there were many.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yes, I think that's a good timing for that. Right, because the thing is that's part of what made it so confusing when I think back on the family, and part of the reason why I downplayed it also was that when I think of my family, I think safety, I think care. I feel like both of them did a lot of things for my brother and I that were good. I feel like in many ways they were good parents. I think they meant well.
Yeah, except for the G years, and even during them, in many ways, you had a happy childhood.
Yeah. Yes. And I have lots of evidence being, when I talk about G, I was just in fear of him all the time. So I managed to figure out ways to have fun. I was like, oh, I'm having fun when we're pretending, like we're aliens or something. I kind of had to force myself to have fun, which is almost what I did later with the R and J years too. I mean, it pretty much is. But I didn't have that feeling at home. I didn't have that towards my dad. Even though he had these angry outbursts, I really loved him. And I remember how excited I was when he came from work. Like he played with my brother and I, and he was just a fun guy. He was happy most of the time when he was not angry. You know? So it almost seemed as though that was out of character, even though it was character, and same with my mom. Like she had this powerlessness, this thing, but she was also very interesting and funny and intelligent, and she taught us a lot of things. She
did grass with you and had like elaborate birthdays and
she did a lot of the house. I mean, she was, I went to her when I was, just when I was hurt, like she was that kind of person. Like I need my mother sort of thing.
Yeah. Both of them at heart, caring and loving people.
Yeah. So yeah, it
makes it so much more confusing and difficult to get at the root of.
Right. So I still feel that. But the thing is, those things are still there, and you could still have effects. You can still have negative effects from people that mean well and are otherwise good people. Unfortunately.
Yeah. No, so let's talk about those effects of his behavior, both of their behaviors on you.
I want to expand a little bit on my dad's anger and what it was sometimes directed at. It wasn't just, oh, you didn't put this back in the drawer or didn't turn off the light or whatever. It was also, he didn't like when I asked him questions. So he would say something that to me was just kind of confusing. And I think maybe a lot of people struggle with, just doing things, right? Someone's telling me to do something and I want to know why. I'm not going to learn necessarily by just blindly doing something.
Well, yeah. Ideally, that's what happens with children, is that they don't just obey.
Right. Yeah.
They learn.
I mean, I understand a parent wanting the kid just to do it, obviously, but he would get angry every single time if he didn't have a ready answer to say, like, turn off the garage lights. Why? Just do it. God damn it. So I kind of started to get this, started chipping away at my agency a little bit. Like, and
your curiosity,
my curiosity. Right. And I also regularly was told, like, oh, you argue too much. And so me just asking questions was kind of framed as, you're argumentative. You're too, you ask too many questions. Like,
something's wrong with you.
Stop it.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't find a problem. I wanted to know these things. And so it really did cause a lot of damage when it came to my curiosity, and not just that, but it planted the seed of me being too agreeable, the codependency. Right. And since this started very early on, I was already doing that by the time I became friends with G. But I remember over the years still trying to exert that and still getting kind of met with this. I think it just threw off the way that I interacted with people. And then when I did try to say argue or whatever, which is just
or just
disagreeing.
inquire,
That's
right?
it.
Well, it
yeah,
doesn't
or
even
just
sound you were
inquire.
disagreeing. Even it was almost
right.
you were just inquiring.
I'm just inquiring. Yeah, I just want to know why someone thinks the thing
why
they
someone
think,
and also why someone wants you to do something
Yeah.
with your body, with your time,
right?
and being told you don't have the right
I don't
to
have the right
ask
to
a
ask
question
Mm-hmm.
about. I mean, that's the issue of boundaries, right? Like you
Yeah.
you don't have a right to your own effort and your own time and your own emotions.
Yeah. So I had plenty of experiences from other people that solidified that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my dad was the main source of that just decay.
And that dynamic was in play the one time you remember him threatening you with physical violence.
Yeah. The only time that I can remember him threatening that was what was happening. I didn't back down. I don't remember specifically what the exchange was, but I remember being in the garage and I just kept questioning about something and he was getting so angry that I wouldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally it was just like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to swat you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, okay. All right. He's saying he's going to hit me now if I don't stop questioning this. So I guess I better back down. I just remember how angry he looked and everything. And it just totally froze in my brain because I just remember exactly where I was standing and what was behind him and everything.
And this is a bit of an aside, but people who use physical violence against their children often kind of justify it with, well, this is so serious. They need to remember.
Yeah, right.
They need to remember this lesson. But the way you describe it, you don't remember at all what the lesson was.
No.
Like you don't remember what he was trying to get you to do.
I just remember the exchange.
You only remember it because of the threat of physical violence, which I suspect is true for children who are on the receiving end of physical discipline.
Yeah.
Is that they just remember the actual act of being hit or the threat of being hit and not what they were supposed to be learning from the situation.
And I think that's another effect is that, with all these things, like I wanted to know why he wanted me to do X, Y, or Z, but instead it's just like I'm learning that I'm trying to just avoid his anger or I'm trying to appease his anger. So him getting angry at me for not turning off the garage light. Sure, that's probably a good thing to turn off the garage. You don't want to waste energy and stuff like that. But instead, I'm not trying to save energy. I'm trying to avoid my dad's anger. That's the main thing.
Right.
That's all I really care about. So it's not really it's not having the effect that he wants it to have. He's not teaching me a lesson. He's teaching me to try to appease his anger. When we were talking about trauma and how that works, I think my dad's anger got embedded in my body as a trauma response, like so many of my other trauma responses, because I can clearly feel that physiological response still when I hear that tone of voice, which
from your father.
From my father, yeah, it still happens as often as ever. Like I said, it happened these days. It's like when I visit, it happens. You've visited, you've seen it yourself.
Yeah.
At least once, twice, 3 times a day, there's some kind of outburst at something, the computer or the whatever.
To various levels. Some of them are more benign.
And
it's uncomfortable for me. I mean, it's just uncomfortable being around someone who's losing it because they don't know how to use their computer or they can't find the thing. It's just unpleasant. Yeah. But for you, it goes even further than that.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard for me to know exactly what I should do.
And we keep saying your dad's anger. This is one way I think that anger gets a bad reputation because people who cannot manage it, it can be very destructive in the world when they just release it in the world, when they direct it to other people.
Yeah.
But your dad getting angry in and of itself is not a bad thing. I mean, I think children need to see people getting angry.
Yeah.
Children need to feel free to get angry and need to learn how to deal with that. It's a natural emotion. Yeah. We all feel angry. Yeah. We all need to learn how to manage that anger in a way that's productive and is not destructive.
So that's the other big effect here is that I didn't have healthy emotional reactions modeled to me by my family. For a while, I was going a little too far with that and thinking, oh, we didn't talk about feelings and stuff like that. But, I don't think that's really a regular thing in families.
In a lot of families, right? They don't necessarily talk about feelings, but that doesn't mean that they can't be modeling kind of healthy emotional
expressed
behavior.
in a healthy way. So what I was seeing was my dad not handling anger very well. And so, this is how anger is handled. This is how people handle anger is just like get angry and shout and
Yeah, and this is how
swear and
people
stuff.
handle frustration if things don't go their way.
Yeah.
Go their way. I mean, it wasn't anger at injustice in the world. It was
Right.
like anger at a computer or anger at a small child because they're not doing something that he wants them to do.
Right. And also, it's a double whammy, as I say, for myself, was that I was trying to manage his anger, trying to tamp it down, but also I didn't feel safe expressing anger back.
Right.
And I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to act like that. So that also planted the seeds for this extreme aversion to the anger emotion in myself. I mean, and I, thinking back, for most of my life, I did not express anger, and it's still very difficult for me to just feel it, let alone express it.
Yeah, it feels unsafe.
Yeah.
To feel it, and then obviously it's extremely unsafe to express it.
Yeah, because I've had too many people in my life where it backfired massively if I even tried the littlest bit. So being the the fight response was not available to me. The fact that I didn't have anger in my toolbox, it didn't help me.
No. No, it got you stuck in abusive situations.
Yeah.
Or it helped keep you stuck in abusive situations.
Yes, definitely. The other side being my mother's emotional immaturity also. And so modeling this powerlessness and not being able to handle other people's emotions. And so trying to manage other people's emotions, taking them on herself and then being resentful and things like that. So those are the models I had. Like we were saying, great people in some ways and great parents in some ways, but also bad models of emotional processing. So I got the benefits of those good parts and I got the negatives of those bad parts. And
so how does it feel now to be finally looking at this stuff in a more nuanced and realistic way? Like what do you feel is your path forward with your family?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, really.
This is all kind of new.
Yeah, right.
And it is difficult to, I imagine, to integrate these two sides to the story.
Yeah, I mean, it was making me sad, honestly, to think about. Like when I was really brainstorming about this episode, I realized, man, I don't think I've spent this much time on thinking about this ever, really. Even when, throughout all this, 2-3 years of self-discovery and analysis that I've been doing since I met you. Yeah, I still just kind of downplayed, just kept my family in the same stasis.
Kind of cordon them off from the larger discussion a lot. So now, we're working to integrate those in. But, it is helpful to fill that picture out.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of now makes a lot more sense. We talked about in those early episodes, I think in the second episode of the whole podcast on trauma, or maybe the first, like where were your parents
right
during that relationship with G? And then also like where were your parents during this 8-year, 12-year period where you were involved with abusive partners and you were struggling with suicidal depression and alcohol, and that makes a lot more sense where they were.
Right.
Because we know that they love you. We've seen that expression of love, but they were just not capable of caring for you really in a way that you would hope your parents would be.
Right. And before I really understood why. So it was kind of like this roller coaster of like for a little bit before I understood them a little better. It was kind of like, wow, I'm kind of not liking my family now. Now I'm like kind of resenting my parents more than ever because, wow, why they didn't help me at all and stuff. But it's like now that I understand them more, I'm coming a little bit more back in the other direction of just like, well, they had similar behaviors as I do.
Right.
And this kind of self-centeredness that goes with that, especially with the powerlessness that my mom had. Because my dad often would try to show interest in things and ask questions about me and stuff. Like my mom really didn't. Like she would just passively absorb information. She would retain it and then she'd tell other people, oh, my son does this and all that.
Right.
But,
like you came to do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, and I still struggle with this kind of active engaging, asking questions and things like that. Like, so it's just a default fallback for me to just wait for the other person to give me information. Yeah, I don't like it. But I understand it. I understand that it's just kind of this powerless lack of agency kind of encompasses the whole, it looks like lack of curiosity, but it's not. It's like just a self-centeredness because of just not feeling good.
Yeah, needing to be in self-protective mode all the time. And
Yeah.
and again, used to being around, so she's been around your father. She didn't have to ask. He would constantly
Right.
dump on whatever emotion he had.
Yeah.
She was expected to participate in, including the positive emotions. So we see this dynamic where, he wants to go square dancing, which is going to be this fun activity, and he wants her along. And I guess because he wants to share it with her, but then he gets angry if she doesn't have the same experience that he does.
Yeah.
Right. So she was with this person for years where she probably didn't want to ask because she got enough of him already.
Right.
And you had that kind of dynamic in your
with R&J.
Your partners as well. Like you didn't want to ask about it. You were going to hear about it.
Yes, exactly. So that really did, because I don't think I was always that extreme with the not asking questions and stuff like that. But yeah, it was unsafe for me to ask questions when I was in those relationships because I just didn't want to. I was trying to make myself kind of invisible in those relationships, really.
So yeah, she's kind of done that in your family a little bit. She's
Yeah.
made herself invisible, but that means she's been in some ways inaccessible to you when you've needed her as well. Yeah.
And I remember a dynamic too that was confusing to me that, my brother and I talked about how like it seemed like we had to force my mom to do things. Like she just seemed to always want to bow out of family activities and stuff like that. And that makes more sense to me now too. Like it's just, I think she was always calculating. It wasn't just the self-fulfilling, oh, this is going to go badly. Part of what she thought or knew was going to go badly was that my dad was going to get angry. So she's like, we've done this before. Every time we go on a trip, he gets angry as we're preparing because it's just like he can't handle this kind of loss of control,
the stress,
and she doesn't like that. Obviously, none of us like that.
It's unpleasant,
And then also, she has this. She had to be the navigator when we drove anywhere, and he would get upset with her constantly because she wasn't navigating quickly enough. If they made a turn wrong, it was her fault.
Right.
And he'd be yelling at her and stuff. And I remember just kind of excusing that and forgetting about it in my head.
Because it was normal in your family.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
So that must feel kind of good to at least have this additional knowledge, to be able to explain parts of your past and your relationship with your parents that previously were confusing.
It does a couple things. It makes me feel better about the fact that, how they were there or not there had really little to do with me. It's not that I was some bad kid and they were uninterested in me or something. And then also it just gives me more empathy for them and the fact that, I actually know how my mom feels because I felt exactly the same way. That doesn't feel good.
And I imagine too, it helps you know what to expect from them.
Yes.
Because this is, I think a lot of people struggle with, is we all want to have this loving relationship with our parents. And if you had problematic childhood and haven't dealt with it, you can keep being disappointed by them over and over again, which I think sometimes that's what's happening with you because you wanted more than they could give or than they haven't given. And now you kind of have a better sense of what their limitations are. Yeah.
And I don't feel as though I need to change them or anything. I don't really expect that to be possible. I'm not,
at this point.
Yeah. I mean, if I see individual circumstances that I feel as though I can help, like say in one particular case on our last visit with my parents, my dad getting angry at my mom not wanting to do something, I felt as though I could step in and just talk to him. I felt triggered, but it felt, this is going to help the situation, I think, a little bit. If I just say something individually to him, like, you know what, let's not force mom to do something she doesn't want to do.
Right.
And he got angry, but then within a few minutes he was okay. And, everyone did what they wanted to do. So yeah, I don't, but my goal wasn't to change them or anything like that.
Yeah, but it is empowering for you to have this knowledge of them and to have the kind of the truer story of your relationship. So you're more easily to make decisions about, when to intervene and when to speak up or when to just let it go.
Yeah. And so they're going through life transition right now. And I feel like it's great timing that I have this new view of myself and them and the family and all this, that I can just really be it's more clear what I can and should do.
So I think both of us have felt a little bad that this wasn't incorporated earlier on into this podcast, because I think a lot of people who struggle with codependent behaviors, their family of origin does figure very largely in where those behaviors come from.
Yeah, for sure.
So again, this is why we wanted to do this episode, to kind of as a corrective, and going forward, there'll be probably more incorporation of this new realizations into the discussions that we have around codependency and your struggle with it.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from listeners. If you have your own experiences you'd like to share about realizations you've come into about your family and how it may have caused some of your codependent behaviors, we'd love to hear from you.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching A Codependent Mind. Our email address is codependentmind@gmail.com. And again, we always appreciate a follow or like or a review on any podcast platform that you listen.
And we'll see you in a couple of weeks with another topic.